We are releasing this on the penultimate day of 2024, and we are using this episode to look back on PMEA in 2024 and look ahead to 2025 on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Despotakis, and welcome to this end of the year edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. A little bit of a recap episode for you. We figure all the TV networks and newspapers and everybody can do it. Why can't we? So we thought the perfect person to help us do kind of a recap of the PMEA 2024 is PMEA's president, Brett Keith. Brett, thanks for joining us.
Mark, thanks for asking again. It's been almost 2.5 years since I've been on a Take Note podcast. First time, second timer. Kind of becoming like SNL, where maybe after a couple of podcast episodes, maybe we get the jackets then too. So something to think about.
Right. I think it's 5. Becky Sensor is either at 5 or close.
Well, she deserves it more than I do. There are a lot of folks who have a lot more to say than I do. But Mark, I'm glad to be here, especially to wrap up 2024 and look ahead to 25 and even 26 too.
Yeah, special New Year's edition here. So Brett is currently the PMEA president. He also is a music educator in the Northern Bedford County School District. So I guess kind of let's start there. This is the kind of the unofficial mid-year for school. During this break period, checking in. How's the school year? How are things going as you're the midway through here?
Well, Mark, I got to tell you, and I think I can speak for a lot of our members and colleagues across the board. It has been a fast and furious school year. And for anybody who's just listening to the podcast, you might not be able to see, but there's a little more white hair on the top of my head and maybe some of our other friends too. But man, there is a lot of stuff going on right now. It's all good, but I believe it feels like, in a moment of vulnerability here where, man, sometimes it feels like it's trudging through this year. We are fighting some battles that in our classrooms and in our schools that may feel unnecessary. However, the outcome and the intentions are still the same, and the silver lining to all of that is that we're seeing tremendous growth even in the hard times. And there's a saying there where if you don't have the struggles, you don't have the progress too. So it's encouraging, even though it seems extremely short. I mean, many of us will tell you that our December holiday and Christmas concert seasons were about 2.5 weeks long, when typically we have another week and a half in there. But it's been a good school year. We're seeing a lot of success, like I mentioned, and I'm looking forward to the spring. It's a nice reset when we come back into the new school year, and I know a lot of folks feel that same way. And I am equally sure that the remainder of the school year is going to go just as fast as well. But to all of our members, and I sit here, being a voice of many. PMEA is here to support that. I myself have felt how the organization has supported me as a member, but also more importantly, how it's supported my communities, our school districts, and our students too. So as we continue moving forward, just want to reiterate, the fact that PMEA is here to walk alongside of you and just to be a system of support and also a system of ideas and facilitation for our members too. But yeah, Mark, it's going to go fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to talk about the PMEA aspect of that, but I just want to emphasize a point here. We just talked about all the things that you're kind of juggling as a music educator that most music educators are also juggling. But when you come into a role of elected PMEA leadership, you're juggling all of that, plus all of the stuff that happens with PMEA throughout the year. So I just want to make note to people that there's a lot involved in probably just keeping your sanity and keeping going forward.
There is a lot of that sometimes, Mark, and it's not looking for sympathy by any means, because I know all of us are busy, but it truly is, as they say, a labor of love to be able to have to be serving in this role. It's humbling, and knowing that the work that I get to do, whether it's in my home office or whether it's in my school office, hopefully is benefiting a lot of other people. And again, that I'm here to represent them. But that's what helps the drive moving forward, to know that there are hundreds and even thousands of other people who I get to have an impact on. And that's, like I said, it's extremely rewarding and it's extremely humbling. And, that's what drives it forward. And that's the important work that we all do collectively. To know that we're in this together, we're not alone, and that we have a great support system with each other. So it's great to be able to do that, and it's even more great when we get to be able to do that in connection with each other too.
Yeah. So let's talk the PMEA aspect then. Let's look
Yeah.
at 2024 here. So I mean, we're at the end of the year. A lot has happened. Curious from your spot, who you get to see a lot of it and participate in a lot of it. What are your highlights of PMEA 2024?
Well, first, I kind of look at this through the calendar year, as opposed to when the term of when we take office in July. But when you look back to just about a year ago, we were working through our student conference, our Crescendo conference, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit. But we've had such great success with that portion of what we do outside of festival work, and something that relates directly as a benefit to the students of our members. Um, I think this year we're celebrating 5 years
Yep.
of that, and it's amazing that something, this little brainstorm of an idea has taken off and has lasted so long, but has impacted so many students over the past 4 years, soon to be 5 years now. Um, One other thing that, talking about impacting a lot of people, and sometimes it's hard to see that, is that back in March, we celebrated Music in Our Schools Month at the state capitol, but also we were there once again on the Rotunda steps in Harrisburg to celebrate Advocacy Day. And when we talk about advocacy, it's not just there fighting for what we believe in, but we're showing what we believe in, celebrating the good things that are happening in every one of our programs across the state, from pre-K all the way to higher education. That day is a day in which we get to speak and collaborate with our legislators. And I encourage all of our members to find the time to take the time, whether it's at Advocacy Day or whether it happens to be just at your home local legislator's office, to find time to converse with them, converse with their staff members, because you will learn a lot. But even more so, they will learn about what you do, what you're doing in their hometowns, what you're doing within your communities in the regions, and how it impacts everybody, not just the students, but how the arts and music impact every single person in a community, and what that even might mean if that weren't there. Sometimes we have to share the what ifs, and sometimes the realities of what's happening in some of our schools too. We get to do this at the NAFME Leadership Assembly each year in Washington, D.C., and we ascend on Capitol Hill and meet with our federal legislators there. And again, it's humbling to know that, but it's also important that people have a voice. And when I say people, we're talking about our students, we're talking about our communities, and we're also talking about our members in our schools, that they have a voice to the people who are making stakeholder decisions that impact them as they trickle down. So, we're thrilled to be able to have this opportunity, and that we can be welcomed at the Capitol, both in Harrisburg but also in Washington, that we can speak with our legislators. And many of them have open doors, and many of them are being educated on that day too. It's interesting to see and hear from them when they say, I really did not know that. I appreciate you sharing that with me. And that's an open door to be able to build those relationships and build advocacy for the work that we do. And Mark, I mean, this because I know you create some of our infographics for our social media platforms. But last year, we were back in Erie for our annual in-service conference, and it had been some years since we had been in Erie. And the bad news is that it almost feels as if we've outgrown Erie based on a number of attendees and the work that's happening at the in-service conference. But the great news is that we are outgrowing Erie in a way. We had far exceeded the expectation of conference attendees. We far exceeded the expectation of our collegiate attendees, but also our performing groups too. And I just brought up the infographics. We had just about 1,200 attendees. We had 41 performing groups. We have about 1,300 performers who were in our invited performing groups, about 160 sessions, and just under 100 exhibitors. And for a space like Erie, which is, cozy and tight, that's a lot of people and a lot of things happening. And then on the other side of that, we don't even, haven't even mentioned how this impacts the students at the All-State Festivals too, where we have just under 700 All-State Festival participating students. We booked up hotels across Erie, across the city, to the fact that hotels were double booking. The amount of repertoire and the quality of repertoire, but also the experiences that our students are being able to take home from that and take that back into their own home programs too, just shows the value we're placing on that particular aspect. But also we know as PMEA that we have a lot more room to expand on that and to grow those performing opportunities and experiences, not just for high school students, but for all students across the Commonwealth too. So we are excited for how that turned out. And one thing that I've got to say, and I know Mark, you were a large part of this too. When we look at how we moved into what many of us educators know as the summer break, we had an opportunity to have our first ever PMEA Leadership Summit, which was held in Reading. And right alongside of that, Mark, you were crucial in this, was our first ever music industry summit, where we brought not only our leaders and future leaders in PMEA and music education together as a conference, but also we brought music industry leaders together from across the state to talk about the impacts that business and industry have on education, and specifically music education. And these very specific vendors and industry partners were able to come and collaborate with each other, but also collaborate with our educators as well. We had about 50 to 60 people attend the the Music Industry Summit, and then we had a great turnout for the Leadership Summit as well. And it's the success that we had from that. We are looking to continue that into the future and looking about how to expand upon that, because it was a great opportunity that when we talk about leadership, we know that leadership doesn't just happen with somebody who has a formal title, whether it's president or whether it's somebody as a representative or a chair, but we are all leaders as educators because we do it every day in our classroom. And if you look across those individuals who are music education professionals, but they are also leaders within their school district too. Many people thinking outside of the box, but that trickles down into our students, where we have student leadership opportunities too, where even if you are sitting third and fourth chair in a violin section or an instrumental section, you are still able to lead, whether you have a formal title or not. And that's one thing that we're trying to instill upon every student, but also every single one of our members and one of our partners too, that we all have certain gifts that we can offer and that we can take that and move that beyond. So it's our goal to again emphasize that, but we also see the benefit that it brings to all of us, because it allows us to collaborate further and not only just grow our organization, but also grow our profession, and to gather support in connection, but also gather support from those people who we want to be supporting us at all times, our community members, our parents, our school board members. That's where we make the difference. So we're so excited that took off. We had Matthew Arau come in as our keynote speaker, and we're going to be headed back to State College this year to continue that work with the Leadership Summit as well. Alongside of that, Mark, again, one thing that I got to give you credit for is you were able to present in Bethlehem this year at the Music Fest Music Industry and Education Summit. Many folks may be familiar with this, but some may not be. But there is a very large music festival, lots of bands and performances that are happening over a couple of days in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And this year there was a music industry and education summit, which allowed many folks within industry and education to come and to present and connect and collaborate with each other. And Mark was there representing music careers and speaking on behalf of that content area, but also speaking on behalf of PMEA too, to be able to get in there and connect in one step further in an area that sometimes we feel disconnected within what we would call the performing arts, where we talk about modern band and commercial music and the commercial music industry. It's something that we've neglected for many years, but it's important to realize the cultural relevancy that it has for everybody, and for the groups of students and parents who are listening and making that music. They also need that connection to realize that music is music. And when we talk about music education, all music and ways in which we make that an experience, it should be included in that, including modern band and commercial in that industry as well. So Mark, I want to thank you for taking that opportunity, for all the work that you do. And then also the work, which I know you sit with me on this too, is that the Pennsylvania Arts Education Leadership Coalition, which brings together our organizations from dance, visual arts, media arts, theater, and music all together, as the leaders from our own organizations come together typically on a monthly basis, and we work through some education opportunities and how we can support each other's organizations, but support arts education as a whole across Pennsylvania. And this was a group that came out of COVID, kind of brainstorming and working through on what work they can be doing and how we were going to operate through this. And it's actually since continued and is really kind of snowballing in a great way right now. Where back in December, I believe it was the 10th of December, amongst all the Christmas craziness, the leaders of our organizations traveled to Hershey, where we presented a session on to the Department of Education SAS Institute, where we presented a session on what our organizations can offer to all educators and school districts across the state, especially as far as professional development. We know where we can walk into a school district and a school in each year, and we are given prescribed professional development, and many times, yes, it does impact us, but we're looking for those things that impact us further, that we want to happen as arts educators in our schools, to be given to us, to understand that we need some of that specific content so that we can continue to grow and to better our students within those walls of our school district. So we went and offered that to the PDE SAS Institute conference, and we had a really great turnout. And it was really a unique opportunity to be in person, to connect with our organizations, but also the feedback that we were receiving from school district and intermediate unit leaders from across the state, who had really wonderful questions and gained a lot of insight. Their feedback was valuable to us, to understand that there were folks there who weren't quite sure of what we did in the realms of professional development, and even further, maybe what we did with, or what we do within our organizations, and how that can impact education, school districts, and education entities across the state as a whole. So that was very valuable. And of course, knowing that we were there, our good friend Dave Dietz, former music educator, and also our arts liaison at the coordinator at the Pennsylvania Department of Ed, invited all of us into a session to be able to work with him and Kate Matcher on how the arts support structured literacy in the classrooms. And it was eye-opening for us to be able to participate in that. I was participating on sight reading. We did some work with theater and a lot of visual arts, as well as the dance aspect, and really how arts, not only do they stand alone, but how they support a school district, how they support other classes. So it's not just utilitarian. So the education in itself is important, but also how we can support the other educational content areas within our school districts. We all know that, but it was a great opportunity to be able to present that to others and have light bulbs go off again once further into how arts can be integrated even further into the foundation of the school district. So Mark, it's been a busy year and we're not even done yet.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
got a
and those are
lot
only the
going on.
highlights, right? Those are only a few
Yes.
of the highlights. But and of course, all the other things that have happened for years continue to happen successfully, festivals and other things happening, awards and those types of things.
Yeah,
So
we've
there's
had
a
those
lot.
conversations. Yeah, we've had those conversations about how oftentimes we look at just what's new in so many ways, and that's the unique thing about PMEA is that there's always something happening. But like you said, there's always the other stuff. And when I say on the back burner, it's not even back burner. This is just a smorgasbord of all the offerings that we do. In fact, when you look at all the councils and our members who are doing the work, there is so much that goes on within PMEA, and it's something that we can be proud of. But really, Mark, I know I thanked you a lot, and I thank our leadership, but what the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association uh, does as far as its success is based on the foundation of a huge, huge team. And that team includes our individual uh, member teachers who are offering their insights into presenting sessions, or whether it's hosting a festival, or whether it's sitting on their local PMEA boards, or whether it's just being an advocate for their school district or in their county. This is PMEA's bread and butter. It's not just what the state as an organization is doing as a whole. When you look at PMEA, we are PMEA, to sound kind of cliche, but it's very true. Our individual members are what hold this together. And really, we're grateful to all of you, and really proud of the work that all of you are doing. And it would be massive to try and name it all. And, and just as we did here, all of those things, they don't go unnoticed. In fact, that's some of the great work that we need to be proud of within Pennsylvania, and I encourage all of us to continue to highlight that, to pat ourselves on the back, because it's deserved. We are really strong here in Pennsylvania. We've got room to grow, as always, but we are really strong in what we do within music education and arts education in the Commonwealth.
So we'll take a second. That was the second to pause and say, reflect on 2024 and say, all right, great, good stuff. But 2025 is mere hours away at this point.
Yes.
So, what's ahead for the next year as people, kind of use this time to reset and think? What are we thinking about for 2025 that really should be on the minds of music educators?
Well, first, Mark, as far as an organization is concerned, we're going to begin looking at our new strategic plan and begin the work on, setting forth what we want to do in the future. It's kind of the New Year's resolution per se. However, we know how New Year's resolutions often go. I'm going to lose the 10 pounds, but I gain 10 pounds more. But in this case, in 2025, we're going to be gathering folks to begin our process on the new strategic plan, while currently still meeting what our plan was now. And that's continuing to review our processes within the organization to enhance our member engagement and continually look through and how we can be stronger. And we're going to be building upon that in the 2025 work on the strategic plan. And I suspect it's going to be a larger strategic plan, but with tangible but also big picture goals to really make a difference, not only within the organization, but really make a difference in music education. Because as we can see, the landscape is changing so much in education currently, even things down to teacher shortages, where we've got to be able to support our teachers in ways in which are healthy. Not just we've got to continue to do things, but we've got to find ways in which we can support teachers in self-care and taking care of themselves, so that they're rested and healthy to be able to pour from a full cup instead of an empty cup. So we've got work on the strategic plan coming. We're going to be also taking a look here very soon regarding our work on Jedi. And if you've not been familiar with Jedi, you should go back a couple of podcast episodes and listen to the conversations between Mark and Tanya Kaufman. She is our Jedi representative. And if you're not familiar with Jedi, it does come from the Star Wars realm. But really, it's an acronym that breaks down for justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion. And the unique part about Jedi is the J, is the justice. And that means not just saying we have things in place and are viewing things through the lens of making things accessible, and understanding all of our demographics and all of our students, so that we're reaching them in important ways, that no one is feeling left out or neglected. But it's the justice part of it, actually doing something about it, taking the action, not just saying you're looking at it, but actually doing that. And that's a challenge. And I'm looking forward to working through that evaluation with Tanya and the organization. So again, that, we're not just meeting the elite, but we're also reaching the folks who, what we may not be considered elite in some ways, but they are important, where they all coexist at the same time, where everybody has that seat at the table. And also, more specifically, even breaking it further, we're having some conversations about how we can support and strengthen our small school settings. And that often not just rural, but small schools in general. And we've got some work that we're kind of tapping into with the small school setting that NAFME is doing as well. And the same thing with Jedi and the Equity Institute with NAFME as well, taking them as kind of a role model, or some ideas in which we can pull from them and use that as a support system as we look at things within our organization as well. And Mark, moving down the calendar, January 28th, I mean, I know that date is important in your head, but it should be important for every member's calendar right now. January 28th is the 5th year celebration of the Crescendo Student Music Conference. And like I said, 5 years, that idea that came up 5 years ago, and looking at where it's turned into and how many students we've reached. I know oftentimes on average we reach upwards of 1,000 students on a single day alone. This virtual student conference is live and interactive with breakout rooms and keynote speakers and sessions and performances. And being that we hit that many students on a single day, and at a very a very affordable price. And I sound like a salesman right now, but it's true, that, you can pay just about $100 to register an entire classroom of students. And that classroom of students could be anywhere from up to 1,000 people watching this stream and interacting and breaking out, or it could be 10. So we have not only single registrations, but we also have classroom registrations as a virtual field trip, as virtual connection, where you don't have to really have somebody come into your school if you're unable to do that, but the opportunity that they are able to meet so many people and gain some experiences outside of performing. That's what's unique about this conference, is that we've got content folks in musical theater, not just only in their road to Broadway, but also behind the scenes in musical theater. That's one of our sessions this year, which we're excited to offer at that. But it's not just musical theater, it's performance anxiety. It's how music impacts the whole life, how it impacted them in their classroom work, through college work, but also what folks are doing and using music for, and performing and working with music outside of their educational life. But as adults, what is this lifelong learning music experience? And one thing to note, we've got leadership sessions in this conference as well. We've got two Grammy Music Educator Award winners on this conference alone, with Stephen Cox and our friend Jared Cassidy. Stephen's going to be working through songwriting and music in the classroom and individuals. And Jared's going to be talking about leading from every chair, kind of what I spoke about a little earlier, in that importance of leadership, no matter who you are, as a student and a teacher, but also, how music is relevant to our students' lives. So this is very student-centered, and focused on that. So, Mark, we've got a lot of milestones coming up here in the next couple of years, and this is one of the first ones, and we're thrilled to be able to offering that. And if you would like to register, and I encourage every single one of you to register, you can visit pmea.net/crescendo, and it has the list of conference events that are happening that day, as well as the time frame and the schedule, and also registration links. You can do that by sending a check, or you can do it via a credit card on that site directly as well. So we're looking forward to that day, and looking forward to having our guests with us, and to be sharing one more thing with so many students across the Commonwealth, being able to support them in this. And Mark, I'm going to turn this on you for a second. We are reaching a milestone podcast performance. If not, we've hit, or a podcast episode here. We've already hit that. Am I correct?
We're close. We are,
So,
I think it's 3 away from our 100th edition of Take Note.
yeah, and again, brainchild here of PMEA, and especially you, Mark, because I know you're the one who facilitates this. Super exciting to be 3 away from the 100th episode. I feel like we need to have like a big party with a big old cake shaped in 100, or maybe a keystone here from that. But this has been huge, the podcast, and I don't want anybody to take this for granted. The podcasts are very easy to listen to. They're inspiring. They get to show all of the work from educators to industry partners to leaders across the country. We've had some really, really great names in leaders, but performers, musicians. I believe we've also had legislators on as well, Department of Education leaders as well. So it's a really great opportunity to show what all music education does, and how it's supported by globally by many different individuals and organizations too. So it'll be exciting when we hit that episode. So that's going to be up here real soon. Probably within a month and a half, right?
It should be next month. And and part of the goal is for music educators to maybe hear from somebody that they would have never come into contact with, and maybe there's a new idea or a new resource that could be valuable for them. And I also, sometimes it's just like humanizing these people, like some of the icons of our world here. Just to ask them kind of the questions that maybe you've always wanted to ask them, but like have not seen a forum to do that, and realize they're human too, and they've come up through and had some struggle or some learning process. That's what I hope we're getting across in some ways too. That certainly has been fascinating to me, but I hope it's fascinating to our listeners as well.
It really is, Mark. And, just going to plug this here. You can always catch our past episodes on our website, but also you can get them within the Apple Podcast app and various forms of platforms.
Yep, it's in all the apps.
Video. Yep. You get the video or you can get the audio, and it's just really great to turn it on and, to have that experience as you, whatever it might be, whether you're cleaning the house or whether you're just sitting and listening to something. So,
that's right.
So Mark, we thank you for that, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yep. We're going to do something special on the 100th. We're working on that.
Bring us all together for
it's just a gabathon. Everybody will just be on, and we'll see what happens.
It'll be a lot of fun. But anyhow, congratulations. That's a milestone.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else for 2025 we got to look out for?
Oh yeah, I got just a real quick list. Obviously, we are back at Kalahari this year in the Poconos for the annual conference. And Kalahari is really a special place, considering we were one of the first groups to have a major conference there. And we've been able to tailor some things with Kalahari as a whole. But it's really beneficial and it's so nice to be able to have everybody under one roof, not just as the hotel, but the conference center and the performances happening at one place. Because I really believe it gives a sense of connection and it brings that to life. Everybody being there, it's nice to walk down some of the main hallways and corridors and see the conversations that are happening along the side, the sessions that have spilled into the hallway, in conversations that continue outside of that with our presenters, but also with our educators and our collegiates and our high school students all being under one roof. So we are back at Kalahari, exciting to be headed there again this year. And also, this, if you are not familiar with the fact that our Eastern Division Conference with NAFME is a biannual event. 2025 is the year of which the Eastern Division Conference, as well as honors ensembles, are occurring, and that's going to be happening at the end of April, a couple weeks after our own conference. And we've got about 25% of the ensembles there are made up of Pennsylvania students. And I know that we'll have many in attendance there to support their students and also attend the Eastern Division Conference as well. It's really a great opportunity for our students, but also our educators and our leaders to be able to connect and collaborate with other members and individuals from other states across the Eastern Seaboard here. And really, we're in Hartford, Connecticut, and it's just a beautiful venue. It's a beautiful concert hall. We were up there for some meetings and some site meetings back in October, and it's a really, really lovely city. So I'm excited for our folks to get to experience that and experience the really great folks across the NAFME Eastern Division. A lot of great collaboration happening there. Also in April, something of note because of the great partnership that's happening here is that we will host our first partnered music performance assessment, or MPA, as many of our internal folks would call them. And that is happening at Heinz Hall in Pittsburgh, but it's also partnered with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. I know Tom Snyder and his team have taken a large role in helping to make this event happen, but the symphony came to us and wanted to partner with how we can offer our assessments and our adjudications within their hall, but also have musicians from the Pittsburgh Symphony add the additional element of some coaching and instruction outside of the adjudication and the assessment that's happening that day too. So we're excited to be able to do that and excited for the conversations that will continue through that, but also occur afterwards as well. Suzanne Perino, who we've talked with, who's their education outreach director at the Symphony. We've had some really great connections and conversations with her and how we can open this up further, but bring other orchestras to the table just in ways to connect and collaborate further across the state to know what everyone's doing so that we can have this sense of, even though we're individual organizations that are doing our own work, what are we doing? Can we model things? Can we share things for the benefit of students and education within our professional organizations as well? So that's coming up in April. We're excited for that. And then really two things is that we've got the Leadership Summit, which is held the third week in July. And again, I mentioned that'll be at Penn State or State College. So a centrally located spot. And we're hoping that because it's centrally located, we can make travel a lot more accessible as far to the polar opposites on the western and eastern side of the state. So we're hoping that we can see a lot of folks make the trip to State College this summer for our Leadership Summit. And as I mentioned about commercial band and modern band and commercial music industry, I know we've shared this before, but the work is already happening and happening fiercely in 2025, is that modern band has been listed as an all-state ensemble now. and that will be implemented in 2026. So we have just a little bit over a year to make that happen, and we're excited to be able to offer that. So there's some work that's happening in that, and it's not just happening at the all-state level, because I know it's happening in many of our districts and many of our school districts as well. But alongside of that, we have the All-State Ensemble and Conference Task Force, which right now is just looking. There are no proposals on the table, but just looking at the opportunities that PMEA may have, whether it's at a conference or whether it's throughout the year, of ways in which we can offer, particularly maybe more ensembles to meet more demographics, content areas, age levels, whatever it might be, but also how we can expand upon that further, what the feasibility of that is, what the costs are associated with that, because obviously we want to make sure that we are doing our absolute best at keeping costs down to participate in these types of events. But just exploring any options that we have, and it's just, throwing things at a wall, see if they stick, or saying, man, this was a really great opportunity, we need to expand upon that further. So they're gathering input from our district leaders, they're gathering input from our all-state coordinators to our conference coordinators, and anybody who has any input on how things may or may not need to happen. That task force is really just kind of sitting down and meeting and saying what is possible, what is not possible, and if it is possible, how do we make those things happen? So it's a kind of can do, what if type of brainstorm session. So that's continuing to be happening as we move through 2025 and beyond. So as you see, it all comes back and it comes connected. And, Mark, you and I mentioned earlier about how PMEA does a lot of work, and it never stops. As you know, it's always something on to the next thing. Excuse me. And it's really great to see an organization thrive in that way. It's never just cut and repeat. It's always what's next. What can we do? What can we do to better serve our members? What can we better do to serve our students? But as a whole, what can we do for our profession and our professionals so that we understand and can show and elevate the importance of music education? And so, this is, like you said, the bullet point, the streamlined list. And, we know coming up through the years that there's going to be a lot more happening, and it's going to take a lot of us to make that happen. So let this be your call to action to our members and to our teachers out there. But we're really looking forward to be working with you. And as I mentioned before, you all have great ideas, and don't be afraid to share them. And if not, someone's probably going to be knocking on your door saying, hey, teacher number one, teacher number two, you should share this. You should be elevated. You should be showing this to so many more people, because it's important. Every single one of us in the work that we do is extremely important to music education. So Mark, let's put a bow on that one and get rolling.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so we've inched even closer to January 1st when we've got to start all of this work for 2025 and start planning for then. So Brett, thanks for joining us today to talk about all of this, to give the great recap and to remind us of what's coming up. And I just, you threw out some links in there. I would just remind people, visit pmea.net. You can find all of this information. So again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all of your hard work.
It's my pleasure, Mark. I'm thrilled to be able to do it. So thanks for the opportunity to be here today.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah for those who celebrate as well, too. So thanks, Mark.
Yeah. All right, and I'll echo the same sentiments. Happy New Year to all of you, as again, we are just hours away from that. Thanks for joining us on this special recap edition of Take Note. We want to thank our sponsors, the Grove City College Department of Music and Zezwitz Music. We will see you next time, and reminder, just a couple away from our special 100th episode. Thanks for being with us.